as I said, this is our last actual lesson, creative writing lesson that we're teaching as part of the fall 2023 series of Conchas y Café. And as I mentioned earlier, you can go to our website now and actually register for the winter spring session that'll be starting in late January. You can do so on our website at distillarts.org/Conchas y Café zine. That's also where you'll be able to find the link for uploading your work to the new zine. This is open to anyone who lives in LA County or outside of LA County if you've been enrolled in the program. So anybody watching on our Instagram live or on the live stream now on Facebook, Twitter, all of that, YouTube, do check out our website. And for tonight's session, I'm very proud to say that Angie, our very own Angie Castañeda, will be actually leading tonight's discussion. This
Mm.
is, I think, one of the first times that Angie's doing a longer lesson for us. Angie has taught lessons for us in the past when we were teaching zine making, but I'm very proud to see Angie taking on a longer lesson for tonight. So, without much further ado, I present to you, Angie, and I'll be presenting the screen as well. So
Mhm.
if you have any questions, either myself or Abraham will be able to answer in the chat, or you can obviously raise your hands and follow along with Angie there. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. As this is my first time presenting, knowing that I am being recorded and all that, so please forgive me if I speak fast or I freak out. I really do apologize. Um, so Luis and I and Abraham decided to go off of our theme about what being out of place and what it means. So I think the reason why I was pushed into this was because I was actually the one who came up with the theme for Conchas y Café, this issue this time around. So yeah, there you go. So to begin with, yes, the alien is me. I'm supposed to represent an alien. So yeah, theme is out of place. We're going to be focusing today on three major questions. One of them is, when was the last time you felt out of place? I'm going to leave up the translation to one of my buddies, Abraham or Luis. They're going to be helping me out with the Spanish parts because, I really don't speak Spanish, so I do apologize. And we will go into that. So yeah, the questions again would be, when was the last time you felt out of place? What made you realize that you were out of place? And how did you overcome it? Luis or Abraham, you want to help in with the translation?
Bueno, ¿cuándo fue la última vez que te sentiste fuera de lugar? ¿Qué fue lo que hizo reconocer que estabas fuera de lugar? ¿Y cómo fue que superaste eso? So, por favor, escriben sus respuestas on ese de chat. ¿No?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you can either drop it in the chat. We also will be having a discussion about this after, but yeah, those are just the main three questions we will be going over, to help kind of help you guys come up with the pieces you will be getting published at the ending of the series. And as earlier as I said, the little alien is supposed to represent me, and my name is Angie. Next slide. Okay. So yeah, the story behind it. Some time ago, I was invited to a friend's house for dinner. I really didn't think much about it until my friend warned me about who was invited to this dinner. Um, I knew why I was being warned. These friends that were invited were more on the wealthy side, and I was one out of the three non-white people at this dinner. So when it came time to eat, then the friends that were invited made their way to the dinner table, leaving the far left side of the table open for me and the two others. And when I say the two others, the two non-white people. Um, and after the dinner, we did move on. We did make our way to the living room, and the only seats that were left available was the floor. The conversation started happening, and this is when I realized that I did not belong there. And the warning at the time, at the warning in the beginning of the dinner table was more of a subtle hint that I would be the one out of place at this dinner. Yeah. So yeah, the illustration at the end that was created by me. As you can see, the little green person is right there. That's supposed to represent me and all that. So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the translation part. I'm gonna have one of my buddies again help me out with that, please.
Yeah, I could take this one. So, tras el tema, hora de cuentos. Y este cuento viene de Angie, fue una experiencia que ella vivió. Y aquí dice, hace un tiempo fui invitada a la casa de un amigo para una cena. No lo pensé mucho hasta que mi amigo me advirtió sobre quién más había invitado a esta cena. Yo sabía por qué me estaba advirtiendo. Esos amigos eran más del lado acaudalado y yo era una de tres personas no güeras en esta cena. Cuando llegó la hora de comer, aquellos amigos invitados se juntaron en un lado de la mesa, dejando el lado izquierdo y lejano abierto para mí y los otros dos. Después de la cena, nos fuimos a la sala donde solo dejaron lugar para sentar en el piso. Empezaron las conversaciones y ahí fue cuando me llegó la realización. Yo no pertenezco aquí. La advertencia al inicio de la cena fue más una pista sutil de que yo iba a ser la persona que sería la que estaba fuera de lugar. Y aquí tienen un dibujo a donde la personita verde representa a Angie.
And this is what's going to lead us to our first question and hopefully the topic of discussion. When was the last time you felt out of place? So please, at this time, take 5 minutes to think about it, write about it, and we'll talk right after.
For those listening in Spanish, tomarán 5 minutos para pensar sobre esta pregunta y pueden escribirlo en el chat o pueden anotarlo en una hoja de papel o donde quieran, pero sí vamos a compartir un poco después. ¿Cuándo fue la última vez que te sentiste fuera de lugar? When was the last time you felt out of place? 5 minutes beginning now. For anybody who's joining in on the live streams or on Instagram Live a little late, at this moment, we are taking a few minutes to answer the question that is on the screen here for the Instagram Live folks, or for those who are on the other live streams, it's in the chats. When was the last time you felt out of place? ¿Cuándo fue la última vez que te sentiste fuera de lugar? Estamos tomaremos como unos 2 minutos más para que escriban sus respuestas. Of course, at this time, you don't have to necessarily complete your story. This is maybe just a chance to brainstorm a little bit your answers. And if you feel comfortable sharing, for those of you in the Zoom session, you can do so in the chat now.
And we're back.
And we
Where
are.
do you go?
Oh, I went to travel for a little bit and then I wanted to come back because I missed you so much. Like I cried and everything.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes. I transported or whatever the word is out of this world and came back just in time to wrap this up. Just kidding. But okay, well, thanks guys. I hope you guys had a good couple minutes to write. Would anybody like to share their experiences or say anything? Follow up on the question about a time they felt that they were left out. They felt left out or out of place.
Well, I wrote when I was in the midst of a group of young people. I should have said younger people because I feel good around young people, but then there is a time and place for everything. And then when they're in a conversation or grouping and, they can share their, how do you say, commonality? Is that a word?
mhm.
The things that they enjoy. It's like, when can I put my voice in, because I'm from old school. And if I even suggest something, because I found myself not telling them, I always says, if I can suggest something, so I don't want to be trying to break their heads about something. But as much as I love my young people, you can feel out of place.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds like a yeah, I mean that's definitely I think an experience that is an important one for us to reflect on, right? Because at least for me, speaking for myself, I was taught as a child that it was really important to make people feel welcome, and it was also really important that regardless of their age, that you would be proactive and try to talk to them. It was just good manners. It had
Right,
nothing to do with, the age difference. It had nothing to do with, any like, I don't know, it's not like one person has more to offer than another. It's just a principle of good manners and being respectful. And really, the truth is that our elders do often have a lot to share. They have a lot of experiences that we can learn from if we're open to listening to them. Um, so it does sound unfortunate that you've been made to feel out of place by younger people, Miss Lois.
But I think that's kind of natural, like sometimes we don't have the same lingo of people who are younger. Like same thing with my nephews. Sometimes they're speaking of toys or characters that to me they're not relevant because we have that age gap, which is interesting because out of place. They never thought about like also out of basically time frame, I guess. If you think about it.
Mhm,
So some keywords, some celebrities and things like that
mhm.
might be different to us than people who are either younger or older. So it's always that kind of like how do you relate to people? And again, not everybody has that skill to like speak with everybody, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely would have to agree. I feel like I'm getting to that age where I'm starting to look at the younger generation where I'm just yeah, I'm getting to that guy's age. But where I'm just trying to I'm like I hear their conversations, I hear some of my younger cousins' conversations where I'm just interested not in their conversations really, but to get out of because it's like I don't want to be that old, person like you guys shouldn't be doing that when no when I remember being young and little they're around their age when being a mischief teenager would be like the coolest thing in the world, but now I'm like, you guys know, but I mean, they'll just tease me about it too. So I definitely get it. It comes with all the ages, I guess. Does anybody else but yeah, does anybody else have any would like to add on to this conversation? Let's see what I see Abraham typing. What is he talking about? Too
Zelda,
late.
I see you raised your hand.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
so Zelda added in the chat, to be honest, I've never felt in place. It doesn't worry me much because I am curious. I don't really need to feel comfortable in social settings. Is that unusual? The times when people have been rude or make me feel unwanted, 99% it's because they feel alienated. That took a while to figure out, but it tests out. Let me think. Sometimes I felt not well treated in restaurants, and I tell my friends that is part of their friendship to stand up for me. I've actively stood up for my friends as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Zelda. Did you have more to add to that?
Maybe just about that part, about people being rude. So this thing about, and without over, you know, belaying, I can't think of the right word now. This incident you used, Angelica. First of all, I'm just curious why a friend would warn you, invite you to an event and warn you. I mean, that feels very unusual. And then when things were happening that the hostess didn't actively make sure you were seated properly or make sure you were properly integrated, like Luis was saying, I come from a space where the burden is on the people with you to make sure you're part of things. And if people don't do that, you're not my friend.
Mhm. Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree with that. I know on my end growing up, it was if we're gonna have people over, if we're gonna be hosting anything, is we make sure that their comfort, their like safety and all of that is one of our priorities. And if somebody older than you is there, by all means, act right. You have to respect your elders. And I definitely did come from that place. And the intentions, I think it has a lot to do with the upbringing of there because it's all different cultures. We're, very, a part of growing up in Los Angeles, one of the things I've always known is diversity. And I don't really know. I know very little of their background of the friends who were invited. I know more of their background to know that they weren't raised the way I was. They were raised completely different. And I think that's where the warning came. Where it's like, hey, you know, you might not mesh well with these people because of the mannerisms, but they're not bad people. You know what I mean? Which at the end of the day, like, yeah, no, it was more of the whole mannerism thing, like the conversations. I every time I go somewhere, I'm talking about this Tao poetry, art. How can we help the community? I'm that person that gets invited, and everyone's like, oh God, can we just talk about the next Beyonce concert or something? Which I love Beyonce too. Don't get me wrong, but it's more of like my conversations usually go more into the depth of how are we helping the world versus what are we planning for the weekend. So it was just a mixture of a lot of different personalities personally. And I also do believe, like, the friend who warned me about the others, um I believe they know me more than they would know me, where they're like, hey, I know you're much more chill, or you're much more down to earth, and I know you'll understand not to get offended if they say specific or do specific things. That's where I'm thinking. But I also did take a major step back and realize, like, okay, you know what? Hi and bye. I don't know. It's just like it definitely was a part of a growing pain situation for me. So and Luis and Abraham definitely helped me out by because I believe like that following week we had our no, whatever, our meeting where they're such good listeners. I was able to like vent out everything and then come up with this theme for you guys. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I also really do like I agree with you completely when you said that you definitely were raised to like be like a good hostess and all that. So I definitely love that. And the whole point, and I also wanted to relate the fact that I definitely do feel that I know anywhere I go, I don't feel like it's my place. Like I don't feel like I'm in place with a lot of the places wherever I end up. Um, so I definitely get how you feel when it comes to that part. Thank you.
And Angie, we have Eric wrote in the chat.
Hi, Eric. Oh. Eric, there you go. Going on tour in Japan post-COVID and trying to connect with folks on a deeper level, from a different country, like eating a Melly crepe cake. Hmm, that sounds good. I like sweets. Unnerving, filming and with layers and of anxiety, timidness and fear. Something. Sorry, I can't see you guys.
Smothered.
Sorry, feared smothered in hesitation frosting. Um, what is that? Sorry, Luis, can you like take over? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Things kind of
Um,
off for me.
One liner and a half walk, mustering up enough courage to approach someone after iterating through multiple scenarios in my mind with Google Translate in hand and multiple bows after every interaction. We should all eat like in Indian powwows, big old circle with entertainment in the middle. I like that idea of all of us being able to kind of be in a circle. I think that that is actually a very important way to make people feel very comfortable too. Everyone gets to face each other as opposed to, some people kind of having like a halfway or a half, look in a person's direction. I think
Mm.
for me growing up, that was also really important is that if you are having conversation with people, not only do you physically move, so that they can be included, but it's also, very important to actually ask them questions and listen to them too. Um, that was always something that was, at least in my upbringing, a value that was taught, that I have also experienced that isn't always a universal value or a universal approach to hosting large groups.
Mm.
Zelda?
Have a comment. There is, can't quite remember his name. I'll look it up hopefully before the end of the session. But speaking of cultural differences that Angelica was getting at, um, this cross-cultural researcher had this idea that some cultures, it was basically how people respect each other. Because I sense that's what we're talking about here when we talk about being left in or left out. We're wondering, do people value us in a group setting? Do people respect us? Are they accepting us for who we are? And this researcher said there's kind of like a spectrum. In some cultures, you have to earn the respect. And so the way you earn the respect is by coming out and saying, I wear Prada or I dress this way and I have money, I have status. And so they surround themselves with all forms of status so that they can earn people's respect.
Mhm,
And then he said, on the other side of the spectrum, there is this notion of people respect you immediately, but then you have to keep the respect. And so, what those people do is they're watching you to see if you're going to do something that will make them, strike one, strike two, strike three. And by the end of it, if you behave in certain ways, they lose respect for you. So
Mhm.
I found that to be very, very interesting. And I happen to be in the second group where when I meet people, I automatically accept them, I automatically respect them. But if they start to do things, then it just rolls back.
mhm,
You know, the worst thing about how do you say change in cultural backgrounds is that nothing stays the same. And I used to think this is when I was, whoo, what, 40, 50 years ago? Oh, that Asian children were very respectful, but they got caught up in all the generational gap of things. And I was in the mall, and this boy had Asian boy. He had a boom box on his shoulder with the loud music, and his mother told him to cut it down, and he disrespected her.
mm,
I was shocked. And another thing is that the I think it was the Italian people. Um, they enjoyed you belching at their table means that you had a well digested meal. And then you know how some cultures had the woman following behind them. And I had a Asian girlfriend, and she told her husband, "Go get the car." And I said, "Can't we walk to it?" She says, "No, he's a man. He can bring it around." So things changes. So when we try to group people as a whole into something, it's demeaning. Now there's like one rotten apple spoils a whole bunch. That happened because a couple of black boys were walking toward me, and I put my purse up on my other shoulder, and they looked at me with shame. They and shook their head because I had been what do they call um when you have how do you say um
like
I
a
can't think of the word.
stereotype.
Yeah, and I'm black,
Mhm,
but I mean that happens.
mm, mm,
So things change, and you just can't how do you say group things
mhm.
as we used to be able to.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that actually reminded me, that I've had that happen to me too. For those of you who haven't met me in person, I'm relatively tall. I'm almost 6 feet tall, and I'm a big brown man. And I remember I used to walk to work at my last job that I had before starting Distill Arts, and I used to walk at night. So, granted, that was for some people already kind of like, a person walking at night, you don't feel comfortable because you can't see them very well, all of that. But I remember I was in a very well lit area and I could see a white woman coming towards me. And this was kind of before the sun went down, so there was still sunlight. And this white woman, rather than walking by me, actually uh, crossed a busy street to avoid me. And those are moments where it's a reminder, right, that there are certain levels of things that go beyond just disrespect. It's prejudice, it's potential discrimination, it's the belief in certain kinds of stereotypes, and those things are unfortunate. And then there's of course the microaggressions, the things that aren't obvious to us. Like, I've been to a lot of restaurants where I've been ignored by the servers or by the people who are actually the hosts there. And they'll first serve a white passing couple before they serve me and whoever I'm with. So there's definitely those things that do affect us, at least here in the US. There are things that maybe aren't as obvious in other countries, but it is an experience that a person of color does have. So not only do we experience it, in that way, we also sometimes will experience it even within our own people, which is kind of unfortunate, because it does come down to, I believe, a certain level of like self-hate. We don't really realize how much we've been programmed by the things that we experience on a daily basis. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah.
but like in terms of like, for example, I have met people who work in like restaurants, right? And they know who's gonna tip better. And statistics, meaning their experience with people, they say like, oh, these people are not gonna leave a tip because they had previous experiences. So it's
Mhm.
not just like a guess. Sometimes they already have seen it before. Sometimes they even know who is who because some people come back to the same restaurant. But
Yeah.
again, it goes all ways. I think I was saying like not everywhere's gonna get along. Like even tourists when they go to a different country, they're gonna get charged extra because they look like tourists or they sound like tourists, right? So in every level, that's always certain way of separation because that's what humans do. Like they see patterns and they start thinking, oh, this goes here, this goes there, this goes there, and so on.
So I have a counter to that, Abraham. And I think my counter is yes, there is a notion of stereotyping. And I tell my friends, stereotyping is actually based on experiences or based on perceptions. With American media, it's kind of hard to tell where the stereotype ends and where it begins because we are watching TV, we are watching movie. But the notion that, white people tip more um, may play out statistically. The fact that young Black men are more likely to do delinquent crime and maybe purse snatch also may play out. But then we also need to ask ourselves, are we reinforcing? Can we do better? Can we dig better? I mean, why should a waiter just immediately assess the people in a group and decide I'm not going to get a good tip, so I'm going to be a little bit less careful? I think as adults and as evolved people, we can do better. And I think we should be encouraging, even actually insisting people do better, because the problem has been that because of these stereotypes, people are getting arrested and dying. And we see that as an extreme, but we also know this happens more frequently than we'd like to think. And then we have institutional things such as the prison system or the way children are graded at school, where these small perceptions play out and it starts to add up, you know. So I think we need to be very careful. And I always ask myself, am I playing into a stereotype? And what can I do not to perpetuate it?
And I think you do part of it because you already said, like, I give everybody a fair chance at the beginning, and then they have to prove themselves
Mhm.
how they're going to basically react to any situation, or are they worthy enough of my time, or are they worthy of what I'm going to give them in return. So that's part of it. But again, it's all human nature. Like, you see all these different countries, they end up doing the same. But yeah, the most that we can do is individually try to do our best.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to agree with both of you that way, where, it is human nature, based on the experiences and all that, people are going to act accordingly to that. But I also do agree with Miss Elda, like, we need to figure out a way to be better. I know when anything I've ever experienced as a young woman growing up, when I was younger and teenager kid, and I've had people be mean to me, treat me with disrespect, and stereotype, like, treat me as I was less than because I was, one, a woman, two, if you never met me in person, I'm like not even 5 feet. So they a lot of intimidating men hadn't also, like, I had to experience that, where nowadays I just look for ways to be better. I always told myself growing up that, if there's ever a chance for me to be better than the way these other people have treated me, then I pray that I have the strength to be better. So I definitely agree with both of you guys. Human
Yeah.
nature. We definitely have to be better.
And I think in the end, it's also worth us saying that, you know, it's really important to remember that any kind of action that we take, whether it's, one to show a sign of respect or one that does show a sign of disrespect or prejudice, those things do have an impact on us for the positive or for the worse. So it's really, really valuable that we take that moment to recognize that, this was a moment that we were made to feel this way, and I don't want to do that to others. I think that that's in the end what really we're hoping to impart on our audience. Yeah.
Yes.
I think I really appreciate the conversation, and yes, Abraham, to a certain degree, what would Jesus do? But we do have a little bit more to continue on presenting here, so I'd like to give Angie a chance to lead us in further discussion. So
I
this
honestly
was
forgot that I was doing this. And the letters are flipping again. Okay, I'm getting nervous. Sorry, guys. Okay, go on. Let's do this.
right.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, speaking about, culture and all that stuff, I did want to also bring out an experience that I've had growing up, about being at a place within your own community. So, growing up for me, Spanish didn't speak. Oh wait, sorry, Spanish didn't stick. I don't know Spanish clearly, and people always wanted to know the reasons why. They would always want to input their opinions on how my parents failed, like disgrace, embarrassment, disrespectful, my elders would call me. And at the time, it would always strike a nerve. Jokes like, give that skin back, or my white friends know more Spanish than you, have always followed me even till now. And at first, it would always bother me. However, I grew up and got over it and realized I got over that. Sorry, words are flipping for me. Um, I grew up and I grew up and got came up with the realization that even if I hit my goal of being a Spanish expertise, that there is always going to be another part of the community, of my own community, that won't accept me fully, and that is my American side. I don't know if you guys all seen the movie Selena, starring Jennifer Lopez, you know. Um, so there is that picture right there where her father is speaking to her about being Mexican American and how it is hard, that one, you're not real fully accepted, basically saying that, we got to be more Mexican than the Mexicans, and we got to be more American than the American. And that's kind of just, I grew up understanding what that meant. So yeah, it's just my own experience of being in my own community. Abraham or Luis, can you guys help out with the Spanish translation, please?
So
I
yeah, and
can't
this
see.
Words are flipping
um,
for me right now.
yeah, so para ustedes que prefieren escuchar en español, estando fuera de lugar en tu propia comunidad. Y este es un relato que viene directo de Angie. Al crecer, el español no se me pegó. Gente quería saber las razones del por qué no. Además, querían imponer sus opiniones sobre cómo mis padres me fallaron. Qué desgracia, qué pena, qué falta de respeto, me decían mis parientes. Y en ese tiempo siempre me llegaba al corazón. Las burlas como el devuelve esa piel o mis amigos gringos saben más español que tú siempre me han seguido. Al principio sí me molestaba. Sin embargo, crecí y se me pasó cuando me di cuenta de que aunque llegue a mi meta de ser experta en español, siempre habrá una parte de mí que la comunidad jamás aceptará por completo, mi lado americano.
And this is also going to bring us into our next topic of conversation. Uh, write about a time when your own family, friend group, or community made you feel as if you didn't belong. What was the lesson you learned from that? Translate.
En español, escribe sobre una ocasión cuando tu propia familia, grupo de amigos, comunidad, te hicieron sentir como si no pertenecieras. ¿Qué aprendiste de esa ocasión? Escriban, tienen, I don't know, ¿cuánto tiempo? How long? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 3 hours,
to
a
4
year.
hours, and then we can all come back.
See you next year. Bye.
Yeah, let's go with another 5 minutes. See how we do with that. And I'm putting the questions in the chat so that way folks can follow along there as well. Hay que darnos otros 5 minutos para escribir nuestra respuesta a la pregunta que se ve aquí. Oh, I was going to say, did anyone want to share some of the thoughts that they jotted down in response to the questions?
My family made me feel out of place. I'm the oldest. My mom said of 17, but I only know 10 of us that lived. And they always says, you know, you think you're smart, you think you this, you think you that. They wouldn't take suggestions or advice. Was that was it Temptations or whatever, the one that says Running Wild, Cloud Nine, that one?
Mhm.
Yeah, so basically most of them are at that point, you know, and it's sad. And they're 50, 60 years old. But they just made me feel out of place, and they still do. I have very little communication with them. They always said I thought I was smart, too smart, or thought I was smart. But I found out that when people are not satisfied with themselves, disgusted with themselves, if you allow them to, you become the victim. And that's what I did. I tried to buy myself into their relationship by, you know, if they needed something, I was always there, you know, Johnny on the spot, so to speak. Just doing for them what they wouldn't do for me, you know, just being, how do you say, vulnerable.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I put myself into that. You know, if they don't agree with you, you shake the dust off your feet and go your way. But I
Mhm.
didn't do that. And I'm still not doing it to a certain extent. Because I talked to my son about it, you know. He says, Mom, he says, you just have to get over it. There, you know, so biological relatives is not always family. There's a difference.
This is true. Agree with that completely.
There's more details, but I'm going to keep it for my story.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, this goes for everyone, never feel like you have to share anything that, you're not comfortable with sharing. This is obviously going to be in a public place, in a public forum. So Never feel like you have to share. No one here is forced to. Um, but I do feel compelled to also kind of say, Miss Lois, I had a very similar experience as you one time, in particular that came to mind as you were sharing. I was about 20 years old at the time, maybe 21 even. I do remember I was still in college. I had maybe a year left of college, and at that same time period, during that same time, my mom had become a born again Christian, and she had started to develop some anti-Islamic sentiments, right? Anti-Muslim sentiments. And I remember walking in on a conversation that she was having with my brother and sister, who are younger than me. My sister being at that time very little. I mean, she was like about 10 years old. And it really disturbed me that my mom would be talking so bad about Muslims. And so in that moment, I called her out on it. And I told her that it was racist, prejudiced, discriminatory, and that it wasn't right for her to be talking that way about people that she didn't know, especially in front of my little sister, who was still impressionable. My sister could have very easily, from that experience, turned into a person that also had anti-Muslim or anti-Islam sentiment growing in her. So that particular moment led to my mom saying, "Oh, because you're college educated, you think you know more than me." Um,
Oh, wow.
and it turned into, a pretty nasty argument about me not just not appreciating the fact that she was saying those things, and me standing up for what I believed in, which I continue to believe in, is that everyone is equal. No one deserves to be treated worse or better than others. We are all just simply equal. Um, and that particular moment really taught me that it didn't matter who it was. There were moments where I was going to have to kind of break my conditioning of having respect for my elders and having respect for anyone, where I needed to say something rather than just sit there and listen and be quiet as I was taught to be. Um, and that was a pretty significant moment in my life where, after that, I never really turned back on that, and as close as I was with my mom, as much as I love her, there are things where even today, like if she says something that comes across as prejudiced or discriminatory, I will not hesitate to tell her, because, it's not okay. It's not okay for, even behind closed doors, for people to have these kinds of views and express them. So, but yeah, thank you for sharing, Miss Lois. I
Very
appreciate that.
welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Angie?
I
Go ahead.
can, yeah, I can think about another time. Um, I think, well, I mean, yeah, no, for sure. I know you, Miss Lewis, you had said something earlier about, family not always being blood, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not
Yeah.
doing what, darling?
That you had said something earlier that your family isn't necessarily always your actual bloodline, like your family.
Oh, I was saying that biological biological relatives is not always family. That's what I
Yes.
meant to say if I didn't say it.
No,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm very
Yeah, because
forgetful.
we have tons of relatives, but you can count family on your hand, really. I mean,
Yeah.
those who care about you, and they really have your back, and if you're
Hmm.
sick, they're going to be concerned about you, But you
Right.
have some of those that, you know, especially those that I reach out because I'm always trying to, how do you say, mend things, and
Yeah.
I'll reach out and call them, and then they'll say, "I love you," and I says, "I love you too," but they don't really love you. They
Yeah.
they don't really love you.
Yeah. No,
It's just a cliche. But I do love them because I pray for them. I love them.
mhm.
I mean, I'm gonna watch. Who I loan money to. Because I might, if you want $3 or $4, because I'm not expecting that back. But
Yeah.
you gotta watch as well as pray.
Nice. Yeah, no, I have to completely agree with you. I definitely know the feeling of, having relatives, but not really having family. For me, I know this always goes back to like poor Luis has to deal with me. He's always dealt with this, but I don't even go by my last name. So every time like I introduce myself, I even say it's my middle name, which is Sylvia. Or, I just don't say I just don't have last name because of like the family that like Castañeda represents, where it's kind of just like, no, like that's not my family. Those are relatives, but that's definitely not my family for, personal reasons and all of that. But I get that. I understand what you
Yeah, you
mean.
don't treat them bad. I mean, you give them respect. I mean, you don't try to
Mhm.
push. Well, at least I don't. I don't try to push nothing on them. Because
Yeah.
hey, I'm not in contact.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. I have one cousin, her name is Vero. I talk to her, and she's, like, the only one that I speak to on my dad's side of the family, besides my dad. My God, I love him, like, I need to say that before anything. I love, adore my dad, like, completely, but it's just him and my cousin Vero that I speak to, that I consider family. Everybody else yes.
Yeah,
Everybody else
everything in
is just
moderation. Yeah, with
so everybody
all
else is
respect
definitely
and love of the Lord in your heart.
mhm,
They have their own life, and that's them. If that's them, that is them. You do you, and you let them do them.
definitely. But I just wanted to add on to you what you had said. I completely relate to you. Does anybody else would like to join the conversation? If not, we can move on. Sorry if you heard the background noise. My mom's listening to Christmas music. Yeah. So I mean, if we're ready to move on, we can move on to the next slide because I just remembered we have another slide.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is. So yeah, that was the Oh, okay. So this leads me to the next slide. And if you know me, I'm always looking for ways. I'm always trying to look for the bright side of things. I always believe that there is a brighter side, or like the light at the end of the tunnel, which is leading us to this next conversation after being felt left out and all of that from our friends, family, and community. Brings me to one of my favorite poems, actually one of the very first poems that got me into poetry back when I was in, I believe, middle school for sure. But for this is, do I have any volunteers to read it in English? Because I always see that's happening. Anybody like to take the first part? Luce? Did Luce raise her hand?
Yeah, Miss Luz by request.
Oh, Luce, they're requesting you if you feel comfortable to read the English or Spanish, whichever one you feel more comfortable with.
You said Louis or Lois?
Oh, Luce or who?
Luz.
Luce.
L-U-V.
Miss Luce.
Yeah.
I
I see. You're on mute, Miss Luz.
Oh, sorry. Can I give Spanish a wing?
Yeah, you
yeah,
can
if
do the
there's
Spanish.
anything you feel comfortable.
Okay. The print's a little small. Can you enlarge it, Luis?
Sure.
Thank you.
That help?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Thank you. El camino no tomado por Robert Frost. Dos caminos bifurcados en un bosque amarillo, y yo apenado por no poder viajar por ambos y ser solo un viajante. Largo me quedé parado y miré por uno hasta donde llegaba a ver, por donde se giraba entre el sotobosque. Luego tomando el otro como igual de bueno y justo, y
Quizá.
quizá, gracias,
Ujú.
y quizá teniendo el mejor aspecto, ya que estaba bien pastado y transitado, aún sin embargo, el pasaje por ahí había dejado a ambos igual de marcados, y ambos en aquella mañana quedaban igual, de hojas no negriscas por el no haber sido pisados. I think you're going to have to make it bigger, Luis.
Sure.
Thanks.
Is that better?
Y ambos en aquella mañana quedaban igual, de hojas no negriscas por el no haber sido pisadas, o aguardé el primero por otro día, aún sabiendo que el sendero lleva a sendero. Yo dudé si yo fuera a regresar. Yo estaré contando esto con un suspiro, en algunos tiempos y tiempos después, dos caminos bifurcados en un bosque y yo. Yo tomé el menos transitado y eso ha hecho toda la diferencia.
Thank you, Ms. Luz.
You're welcome.
All right. And we have it
And
here in English.
would anybody like to volunteer for the English ones?
I'll try part and somebody else can take over.
Yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Two roads diverged in a in a yellow wood. I'm sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and I looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as far, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and worn wear. Though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no steps had trodden back. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how.
Way.
Yeah, that only makes sense. I'm sorry. Yet knowing how way lays onto way, I doubted if I could ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages. Hence,
Mm-hmm.
two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Excellent.
That's a little bit different than his normal work. No,
Yeah.
because it usually rhymes, and everybody used to say that I was like David Frost because all my lines rhyme. But
Beautiful.
that seems a little different. That's why it was hard to digest. He
Uh,
threw it off.
It does rhyme. Like you have would and then stood and could.
But usually each line rhymes with him.
Yeah, this is a slightly different rhyme pattern than probably what you're used to seeing. This would be what we would call an A B A B B.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah.
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 Thank you guys for reading that. That's like really one of like my favorite poems, and it's honestly been one of like the what has shaped me in life. I feel always taking a leap of faith and going down a different road than following the crowd, which ties us back to happy to be you're like out of place, because if you take the route like the what did he say right at the end? The road less traveled by, you're definitely going to be one of the very few people. You definitely will be out of place at certain times. But this also does lead me to the next slide, please, Luis,
Mhm.
where the light at the end of the tunnel for me would always be that I have come to the conclusion in my lifetime that being out of place, sorry, you guys are like blocking my view from the whole thing. That being out of place isn't always a bad thing. Eventually you do find where you belong. And if by any chance that sorry, you guys are in the way, excuse me. By any chance, if you don't, maybe you guys were just meant to create something better. And the fun fact that I've always loved about this was the fact that Distel was created because the one and only Luis Antonio Pichardo didn't feel that he had a place. So that's why he created it. I will let him speak more about it.
Thank you. Yes. Y en español, para traducírselo, Angie aquí reflexiona un poco y dice, en mi vida he llegado a esta conclusión. El estar fuera del lugar no siempre es algo malo. Eventualmente encontrarás el lugar donde perteneces. Y si por casualidad no lo encuentras, quizá es porque eres tú quien creará algo mejor. Y un hecho divertido, como dice aquí, por eso es que se formó DSTL Arts y el resto es historia. And yeah, Angie is right. I did share with her many times, that Distil Arts, this isn't a commercial, but Distil Arts was created because I myself found that it was difficult to find community, and it was especially difficult to find artists like myself who were looking for ways to, turn this into a career, uh, and we also just have not always had access to publishing. Ultimately, we don't always get the opportunity to tell our stories in our voice using our words. A lot of times in my experience, because I'm bilingual and bicultural, I have to tell my story often in English only. If I submit my work to other magazines and publications, it's usually an English only publication, and that isn't how I express myself. I write in Spanish, I write in Spanglish, I do both. And so for me, it was necessary to ultimately create my own path. And that's what led me to forming Distill Arts with my original board members, and it's really, in the end, I think important that we all feel empowered to create our own spaces, to speak to our own experiences, and to have those experiences actually validated and shared in a way that is true to who we are. So, um, I'm really glad that Angie had an opportunity to tell her story in her own words, because it's just as important as anyone else's story. So I do want to say, thank you to Angie, and thank you to all the efforts that she put into making this presentation for us, because it was, I think, a really important story to be told, and it's good for all of you to know that this is part of the reason why we chose to do Out of Place as our theme for this semester of Conchas y Café. So a big round of applause to Angie, and a big, thank you for leading us in this discussion.
Thank you for giving me no choice. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Thank you. Thank you for pushing me. This I took a major leap or leave of absence when it comes to like performing and and like all that. So it's cool because like it's like it's getting me back into the world of having to get ready of performing and all that. So nerve-wracking, but thanks for always being there, Louise. And Abraham, you too. You're
You
nice
said
sometimes.
push, we say encourage.
Yeah, yeah. I needed to push. I'm good with tough love. I was raised with tough loves, but for the internet's sake, yes, they encourage me. Well, thanks guys for letting me lead. I hope next
Thank
time
you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Angelica.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you for coming. Thank you for logging on. Thanks for your participation, everybody. Are we still doing the recording? Are we still live?
We are still on the live stream. And
Mhm.
ultimately, I think, just as kind of like a way to wrap up really quickly, the homework for today is really to think about the things that you started writing about, answering the two questions that you were asked to contemplate. And, this is maybe something that you would feel comfortable with sharing and having as part of the Conchas y Café zine. If not, I hope that this at least helps you with, processing whatever it is that comes out of your writings, because kind of as we've been discussing, some of these things can be more sensitive than others. And it's good for us to remember that, we're not alone in these experiences. All of us have had some moment where we were made to feel out of place. And that moment of feeling out of place is maybe an opportunity for us to reflect on why and how we can maybe be better in those situations towards other people, and even towards ourselves. So this one, it is like the homework, but this one is more optional, than the last ones have been. Any
So,
question?
guys, if you want to burn your family and say anything about how they make you feel bad, go ahead, burn them. I mean, they're already out of your will, so
I
Wow.
think that I
Exactly.
did that a little.
Yeah. But yeah. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they would like to add or share um, in relation to anything that we talked about today?
like the poem basically remind me of, have you ever walked that path when it's snow and there's no any track? So cool because like nobody has walked there before as the poem. Thank you for the poem.
No, thank you. There's this other poet that I really love. You just reminded me of him. God, I have to find and I forget his name. I don't pronounce his name properly, I believe, but his name is Anish Morgani something. And he talks about how I have to find the poem. It's such a great poem. Where he says that, oh, it has a cuss word. Okay, I'll just find it and send it to you guys. Feel comfortable cussing all of
We
you guys.
stopped recording, so I guess you can say it.
I'll send it to the homework classroom. It'll be fine.
Angelica, the name is Anish. What's
Anish Morgani.
Morgani? Okay.
Yeah, I'll drop the link when I find the poem tonight. It's gonna
Good
be on my
night,
mind.
everyone. Have a blessed evening.
Night, Miss Lewis.
Hi, Miss Lois.
Miss Luz?
Yeah, I just want to share something real quick.
Mhm.
A good, I don't know, good 5 years ago or so, since Luis takes the summer off, I was bored and looking for another writing class to join, at least for the summer. So yeah, I think I looked on Meetup or something and found one in Long Beach, and drove all the way to Long Beach and met up with this really nice group of writers, and but just did not click with them. um, I think they were just much more better educated than me, and they just happened to be Caucasian. So I just couldn't relate to their writing. I felt really bad. I tried to give them some critiques, but I just didn't understand really where their writing was going. Although they were really nice to me and really gave me a nice critique. And I was disappointed that I just didn't fit in. But that was one of the memories that I thought of when you're touching this subject. Um, I did my best, but sometimes just uh, this group has just been much more open and warm and accepting. So I've just always felt much happier in Conchas y Café. So I vowed never to look out again.
I hope.
And I feel guilty for even have tried.
I like to believe that this DAO has become a home for everybody. So whether or not you stay with us or not, just know you always have a home to come back to, Luce,
Yeah.
and everybody else who's been here with you and in the long run. So
Yeah.
No, this coupon expires 30 days. If you don't use it,
Abraham is getting kicked out. And don't worry. Don't listen to Abraham.
Yeah, Abraham's not the boss. I am.
Yeah. Point period blank.
Yeah. No, I think that I appreciate you sharing that, Miss Luce. It's not like I want to say, anything bad about anybody else, but it is really important to me personally, and I know the people on the team too, Abraham included, that all of us feel the same. We want this space to be a space where everyone feels welcome and everyone does have a place where they can speak freely about what their thoughts are, and even if at moments those thoughts maybe don't go with everything that we believe in, as individuals, we at least want to have a space where people can express their truest selves and learn from one another, because in the end, that's, I think, where this whole conversation for tonight has really tried to go. It's absolutely important that we be open to hearing other people's stories, to sharing our own stories for the benefit of everyone learning from one another. In no way do I ever say that, I'm an expert in any of this stuff. Yes, I might have gone to school for writing and poetry, and it's been something that I've been doing for many, many years, but I don't have all the answers, and I don't have all the knowledge in the world at my disposal, off just from memory. There are things that I sometimes have to look up, and there's going to be things that I might get wrong at moments. But in the end, I think that we really do benefit as people, as individuals, when we share these spaces and we all treat each other with true equality. So for anybody that is listening, on the live streams or on Instagram Live still, you are welcome to join our class in January when we come back. And if you have anything that is inspired by any of the conversation today or any of the past lessons, you have until December 19th to upload it to our submittable page where you have the opportunity to potentially get your work published and be among other fantastic writers from our community here from LA, and across the nation, because we even have people who are in other states in the US. So, um, everyone really truly is welcome. And if you do decide to explore other venues, other avenues of expression, you're obviously, welcome to do so, as well as being part of our programs. So, um, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. Thank you, Abraham, for also putting in the chat the link for our website. Again, it is distillarts.org/Conchas y Café zine for anybody that is following along on the live streams. And if there are any final questions or any last things that you'd like to add before I end the live stream, now's a good moment.
When are we watching the Selena movie as a class?
You have to host it at your house, remember?
Yeah.
You gotta let me know, sir.
You
I'm
bring the
sorry, guys. I have
pizzas,
to go
I'll
to
do
bed
it.
now.
Bye, Lena.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, that's a good question. We can plan for a movie night.
Beady beady bam bam.
I would love a movie night, but Selena, for me, was such a tearjerker. I don't think I could do it again. Yeah,
Napkins not included, or what's that?
what
Wipes.
tissues not
Yeah,
included.
there you go.
Watch the Beyonce movie.
I'm not. She's all right, Beyonce. But talented people who get killed for no particular reason, I can't do that. I can't.
Yolanda, man, forever. Just what's this question you're
So really quickly, for those of you still in the Zoom, this little questionnaire that just popped up on your screen, feel free to take a couple minutes here to answer the questions. We'll obviously all appreciate your input, your feedback. The only last things that I want to share before we end the live stream and ultimately the session is that, this whole series of, out of place, the theme out of place, it has been, I think, a great opportunity for us to all kind of, consider what we can do, right, to make everyone feel more welcome in our just general vicinity. And a lot of these things do translate over to the larger community. So, we really appreciate the fact that all of you have been participating throughout this whole series. I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the work that gets included in the Conchas y Café zine. Um, again, December 19th is the deadline to submit. Next week, we will have another workshopping session. So that'll be your last opportunity to get feedback on your writing before the actual deadline. On December 19th, we will have a Zoom session, but it'll be open only if you need basic assistance with uploading your work. If you're having any kind of like technical problems with accessing our submittable page or anything like that, I'll be online on Zoom for however long is necessary. But there will be no lesson and there will be no, feedback given on the 19th. So again, just make sure you get your work in before 11:59 p.m. on December 19th. And in the meantime, too, you can still email us directly if you want to get, any kind of like questions answered or guidance before the deadline. But aside from that, it's been a pleasure. Thank you once again, Angie, for leading tonight's discussion. I think you did a fantastic job. And I say, I guess, good night to everybody on our live
Pretty
streams.